Picture this. You are in a relationship where you give everything, your time, your energy, your loyalty for decades. And what comes back? Broken promises, empty words, just enough attention to keep you around. So here is the question for episode 1 of FBA Roots Unleashed. When does loyalty become stupidity?
That is exactly what we are unpacking today. And trust me, yes, some people are not going to like this conversation, but we are not here to make power comfortable. We are here to say the quiet part out loud. I am Chantel.
And I am Dwayne. Welcome to FBA Roots Unleashed, where we say what others will not. No apologies, no polished up talking points, just raw political reality for foundational Black Americans.
So buckle up, because this one is going to shake some tables. Let us start with the uncomfortable truth. For generations, Black voters have been the Democratic Party's most dependable bloc. According to Pew, in 2020, 92% of single-race Black non-Hispanic voters backed Joe Biden. And even going into 2024, about 83% of Black voters still identified with or leaned Democratic. That is not casual support. That is political loyalty at a very high level.
Right. And that loyalty is not symbolic. It is strategic. Pew reported that Black eligible voters were projected to reach about 34.4 million in 2024. And in places like Georgia, they make up roughly a third of eligible voters. So when folks say Black voters matter, no, it is bigger than that. In key states, we are part of the foundation.
Exactly. We do not just show up, we show out. Rain, confusion, long lines, voter suppression concerns, we still vote. And yet the hard question is, when was the last time that level of loyalty got treated like real bargaining power instead of automatic support?
That is where it gets uncomfortable. Because if a party knows you are showing up no matter what, where's the pressure to deliver something specific? Not a slogan, not another panel discussion, not a symbolic gesture. I mean concrete policy. Let us talk reparations, because people love to get vague right there. H.R. 40, the federal bill to create a commission to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans, was introduced again in the current Congress. And yes, the bill language includes looking at remedies, including compensation. But here is the problem. It is still a study bill, introduced, not enacted. After all these years, we are still being told to wait for process.
Come on now. That is the part that wears people down. Not because study is useless, but because study becomes a holding pattern, a loop, a way to sound concerned without actually cutting a check, changing a structure, or making descendants whole. And people hear that. They feel that.
And meanwhile, the symbolism keeps coming. A speech here, a hashtag there, a commemorative month, a holiday. Look, Juneteenth matters historically, absolutely. But let us be honest. A holiday is not the same thing as a reparative economic policy. Those are two different categories.
Right. And that is not disrespect. That is just clarity. We could appreciate symbolism and still ask where the substance is. Those are not mutually exclusive. The problem is when symbolism becomes the substitute for substance.
Now here is the part people really may not want to hear. Some of this is on us. If we train politicians to believe our votes are guaranteed, then why would they negotiate with urgency? Why would they offer receipts if we do not demand them?
Say that again. Because honestly, loyalty without leverage is just dependency with a nicer name. If every cycle the message is vote blue no matter who and do not ask too many questions, then we should not be shocked when election season brings poetry and governing season brings silence.
Yeah, and the data shows the loyalty is still strong, but it is not infinite. Pew's validated voter analysis found that in the 2024 election, about 83% of Black voters backed Kamala Harris, while about 15% voted for Donald Trump. Now, Democrats still won a large majority of black voters, but that shift matters. It suggests frustration, disengagement, or at least a warning sign that the old formula is under strain.
That is important because some people will hear this conversation and act like criticism means defection. No, criticism can mean expectations. It can mean grown-up politics. It can mean, hey, if we are the base, stop treating us like an afterthought once the ballots are counted.
Exactly. Real allies do not fear accountability. And real political leadership should be able to answer a direct question. What specific policies are you advancing for the descendants of American slavery? Not for everybody in theory, not in language so broad it disappears, specifically.
And let us go one layer deeper. What about the officials, operatives, and public figures who claim to speak for Black communities year after year? If they have had decades in office or around power, what measurable gains have they delivered that are targeted, material, and durable? That is not disrespectful to ask. That is basic accountability.
Right, because too often representation becomes optics. Somebody gets a seat at the table, but our issues still do not make it onto the menu. And then communities keep dealing with familiar problems, wealth gaps, housing barriers, underinvestment, school inequality, criminal justice disparities. And we are told to celebrate proximity to power as if that alone changes outcomes.
Which is why this episode is really about political maturity, not tantrums, not fantasy, maturity. Knowing your vote has value, knowing your loyalty has a price, and knowing that if you never name your price, somebody else will keep setting it at zero.
Wow. That is it right there. So this is our challenge to listeners. Stop treating political participation like a ritual and start treating it like a negotiation. Ask harder questions, demand timelines, demand names on bills, demand measurable outcomes. And if people want your vote, let them earn it in plain language.
Because at the end of the day, this is not about begging anybody to care. It is about understanding power, using power, and refusing to hand it over for free. Foundational Black Americans helped build this country. The least we can do for ourselves is stop entering politics like we owe unconditional loyalty to anyone.
If you are tired of the same old talking points and you want real talk that respects your intelligence, subscribe and stay with us. This is just episode 1, and honestly, we are only getting warmed up.
Share this with every FBA in your circle. Start the conversation, even if it gets uncomfortable, especially if it gets uncomfortable. That is usually how you know it is real.
We are the descendants of people who survived the impossible and built under conditions nobody should have endured. It is time we acted like our political power matters.
Stay strong, stay focused, and keep unleashing that power. We will see you next episode. Peace.